Yes, see, one of the things is that around 70% of the India's GDP is contributed by family business. And there's another saying, from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves, that by fourth generation, less than 10% of the family businesses survive. So you see the big dichotomy. The contribution is 70%, but not many of them survive beyond fourth generation. And I belong to a business family. My siblings, cousins, everybody is in business. And I've been listening to business conversations at home right from dinner time. And in my work, I've always worked, for one company or the other, never been an entrepreneur myself. But I happen to appoint and work with hundreds of dealers, each of which was a family business. Now, when I try to put all this together, that is there a correlation between the family businesses that survive, thrive, and where people want to work versus family businesses that go down the line or go down the drain? I try to find a correlation between the beliefs, behaviors, and the work culture at various family businesses and how that plays out in terms of the final outcome of that business either surviving or not surviving. And how I did it is I started writing anecdotes, like in this situation, this is how Lalaji would behave. In this situation, that is how his coterie would behave. And this would be the outcome. And this would be the impact on the business. So by writing all these anecdotes and then trying to develop a common hypothesis, I mean, the book got created. So it was my effort to try to understand, what distinguishes one from the other. And finally, it took the shape of the book. So I think the first thing is that, the difference, the one fundamental difference between an MNC and a family owned business, is that in an MNC, the processes are very well defined and there are governance mechanisms to ensure that those defined processes are actually followed. So you might be a managing director of an MNC, an expatriate sitting in India, and you don't like something. However, you have to follow the laid down guidelines, principles, guiding philosophy. Now, when you come to a family business, of course, there might be processes that are defined, but the level of autonomy that the family business owner or owners has is huge. So one big difference is that in a multinational company, your day would be predictable. What you're supposed to do would be more defined. What are your deliverables would be, clearly there. Whereas in a family owned business, things may change from day to day. So I'll give you an example, which I've taken from the book. And 100% of the examples of my book are based on research and inspired by real life stories. So, for example, I've taken an episode in the book where, the owner comes and says, "Hey, look, buddy, let's get into, trading business." So he said, like, "No, but we are manufacturer. No, 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 trading is very good for our company and we'll set up an office in the Middle East and, we'll send goods from here." So the whole company is in an entropy and, they are given 3-4 days to make the business plan. So the weekend is gone, and on Monday morning, the Lalaji is supposed to show up, and he doesn't come. And he says, "Kya ho gaya?" He says, "Nahi yaar, fir kabhi karenge." So he doesn't show up, and the next day he comes. He said, "Let's get into textile manufacturing." But he says, "Sir, we have been working for last 4 days on trading, and setting up an office in Middle East." No, no, leave that. Yeah, let's move to something else. So this is the fundamental difference, where in a family owned business and a Lala company, things can change dramatically from day to day. And many times, this change is not coming from a deep place within, which is your conviction. It is coming from, what you're hearing over a social dinner or a game of golf or, what your competitor is doing. So this is one of the fundamental differences between a MNC and a family business. In order for me to talk about crocodile, let me first talk about the pond itself and the context. So, a family business, I call it a Lala company. So, not all family businesses are a Lala company. A Lala company is one where the person who calls the shots from the family, he could be the patriarch or second generation, he acts like a king, or God, or sometimes both. And the cover of the book will tell you, very clearly that that is the typical, if that is the kind of promoter you have, then you are sure you are in a Lala company, okay, where everybody is saying, like this and, there to serve you. First point. Second point is, as I often say, what is a king without subjects and courtesans? So, two important characters that give Lala the power and the kick. One is the Munim, which we call the family accountant. So, a family accountant is supposed to keep the business accounts, etc. But if you see in most of the Lala companies, the Munims, get unbridled power. They actually call the shots, and in many cases, they are more powerful than the CEO, because Lalaji loves money. Munim always talks about money, and he is able to create that impression in the mind of Lalaji. Look, had I not been there, to keep an eye on these so-called professionals, they would have looted all your wealth away. So right from checking to travel bills to how many samosas anybody ate, or to a business proposal, Munim is ubiquitous. He's everywhere. So that is the first point, in a Lala company, the first pillar. The second is a chamcha or chamchas. Now, what is the job of a chamcha? What's going on in the company? Who's talking what about Lalaji? Who's trying to fleece money? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? So he's the guy who's looking for all the spicy news. And if there is not enough spicy news available, he catches the news, adds his own spice, and as I say, feeds it into the ears of Lalaji. And Lalaji being reactive, he will immediately call this guy, let me fix him right now. So just imagine the equation. You have a Lalaji, which I said, who's, changing from day to day. He has his whims, fancies, and he thinks he's all powerful. Then you have two other pillars. One is the Munim, who says, look, it's me and keep these professionals, under check. And then you have a Chamcha who's trying to incite and, always trying to look at the news, sometimes self-created news. Now imagine a professional in this environment. He doesn't know where his loyalty lies. If suppose the Munim is, not letting his proposal pass, which is important for the company. Now, what does he do? Can he take up, swords against the Munim? He can't. And how does he deal with a Chamcha? He is also going to say something to Lalaji. There's no proof. Lalaji, he was doing this about you, doing this, saying that. So this is one set of crocodiles, but there is another set of crocodiles. Imagine a family business, which is started by two brothers. Now each of them have two sons or maybe one daughter. Now this next generation, the third generation, there are five people, out there in the business. Now who's the guy who's going to be the chairman and managing director? Who's the guy or girl who will be in the most position of power? So there is this, as the generation increases and number of people vying for the throne increases, there's also this conflict going on between family members. And there's no clearly defined organization structure. As long as you belong to the blood, you're the boss. So now a professional on one hand is vying with the whimsical nature of the Lalaji, Munim, Chamcha, and then other family members. One family member will say, do this. Other will say, don't do this. So, this is the kind of situation where a professional is stuck. And that's why I call it crocodile-infested waters, because chances of being gobbled up are very, very high. Once you land up into a family business, and suppose it is indeed this kind of a dramatic place, where all these equations are playing out. Now, how do you survive here? So, in my opinion, the first and foremost is, if you know the terrain, if you enter the waters knowing that there are crocodiles over there, you would be far better prepared, than being surprised. Oh, I never knew this place is like this. So that is the first thing. Second is, anybody in the family business who goes through all this rigmarole, and I would say sometimes a lot of pain and suffering, if he has read this book, then the first solace he will get is, oh, I am not alone. There have been enough before me who've gone through this. They are presently in other companies and there will be more. So, sometimes when you realize that, look, you're not alone, I think that is empowering because it gives you some solace. And third, now coming to specific tips. First and foremost, we have to remember that Lala can be anything, but he's not a fool. So the fact that he's able to hire you, he's a smart guy. He may have his shortcomings, as I mentioned in the book, not keeping time, not keeping the word, trying to take people for granted. All contracts are one sided, but he has the brains. So, one thing that will always hold any professional in good stead is high level of ethics and high level of morals. When I say that, I can give you an example because I interviewed hundreds of Munims, Lalas, and Chamchas. So one Munim told me, I said, look, how do you give a character certificate to these professionals, or do you have an assessment test? So he says, Raji, one travel bill or one entertainment bill is enough for me to distinguish between a professional who's honest and who has some integrity issues. So first and foremost is Lala, having said that he's a smart guy, if you have high level of integrity and high level of morals, and you don't misuse the company's resources, and you look at company's resources as your own, like Lalaji's money is my money, I think 50% of your battle is won. Because in each of your interactions, in each of your the way you conduct yourself, this will show out. So this is point number one. Point number two is, I've worked for Indians and Japanese and other companies. We use this word a lot. I feel, I think. So instead of I feel, I think, if we can substitute that, with some data reference or anecdotal reference or facts, then it becomes much easier for your point to get across. And that becomes more difficult for a Munim or a Chamcha to shoot down what you're saying in a meeting. Because if you say, look, I think we should do this, and the basis of my saying this is this, then even though Muni may be fuming, look, this guy, is earning brownie points and he might become popular in front of Lalaji, but he will not have much to shoot you down. So, second point is whatever you say and do with facts, anecdotal reference, and conviction. Never ever fall in the trap of Munim or Chamcha. They will do every trick under the sun. So, because they want to have the monopoly of Lalaji's love, trust, right? They think if professionals go keep them away, so that the only people who are trusted are us. So, if you start doing well, you can be sure that their attack on you will also keep going up. So, how do you deal with that? Don't fall in their trap, which means they will try to entice you to do things. They will lay down the traps for you. So once you are aware, that this might happen, maybe your actions will be different. And last, I use this very often. Use the Munims and Chamcha's ego for your benefit and not to the detriment of your career. A Chamcha is looking for masala, give him masala. Munim is looking for, pat on the back from Lalaji. So you give an idea to Munim. Look, sir, with this idea, you can save so much money. So use their ego, for your benefit. And for that, there is a precondition. You have to have tact, diplomacy, but most important, your tolerance level has to be very high. You have to have cool nerves, and you have to be able to live with toxicity and take a lot of things that you don't want to take. So if you have a calm nervous system and you're able to see all this and see that with a sense of detachment, okay, this is the rule. I'll play by the rule, but I will succeed and I will not let you guys, get me.